Okay, you said hang on, hang on, hang on right when I hit record. So it's fucking hot, man. Can I just say it's fucking hot?
At least it's not raining.
Okay. This is an appropriate intro for this one.
We had a really good time. We know you will too. And this is one of those things where it might actually be powerful for you to click over to YouTube and watch the video. The audio is great. Like if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, great.
Or Spotify.
When you're done listening to it all the way through, go back and watch the video, and please subscribe, and then also comment and let us know what you thought.
Leave a rating. Yeah. Hey, just out of curiosity, how was it for you to connect with an animation?
I had thoughts about it while it was happening that were well contained and didn't interfere with the connection process. I really enjoyed myself. I thought I'm going to use the word they, had a lot of fun things to say. And it was just this side of talking to an AI on a podcast, because instead of it, it was automated generated movement, but not automated generate intelligence. So that was a relief. I think it would have been an AI. I bet, who knows? We've been asking Art, our producer, to book one of those AI sexy companion bots on the show, but so far we haven't had any luck. But maybe sometime soon we'll do a podcast with one of those, girly AI things that have been prowling around and trying to get us all us men to log into them
and send them money, and we'll end up sending them $260, and we'll be like, ah.
It's not necessary for you to be quite so close.
Really, is it just popping? I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Every man's dream.
All right. So, yeah, me blowing them.
So fuzzy.
All right. So here we go. Welcome to episode whatever with the blue cat.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Dus je zeker wegen them.
Yo iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws with your co-hosts, Mark Wendt, Greg Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
And today we have special guests. Hey, before I go into the special guests, subscribe, like, give a review. We appreciate all that support. And now, without further introduction, we introduce our first animated character, the blue cat, Bob Lement.
Yeah, blue cat. Yeah. How's it going, guys?
Lement? Is it Lement or Lament?
Lament, but you could say lemons. It sounds like lemon with a T, but that's all right.
Awesome. Well, it's great to meet you. I was reading about you today, and circumstances being what they were, I did not get to do as much prep as I usually do, which means it's going to be more off the cuff.
That's fine.
You've made some movies, I see.
Oh, yeah. This and that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
All right. So I have a question. What is the impetus for keeping yourself animated?
Well, this actually came about I guess it's been almost 3 years now. So I've always wanted to take what we normally do and animate it. And I figured out a way to do that about 3 years ago. And then, but it's really, actually, I've got it set up now for the live thing. It works really good. But unfortunately, my co-host he can't do this. He doesn't know how to do it. And we're not neighbors or anything. We're a couple hours away from each other. And there's no way that I could talk him through it over the phone or anything. And so I got tired of doing the animated thing, because if you do it after the fact, it's a lot of work. And then now I've adapted it to be, to do guesting things and whatnot. I thought, this is kind of fun, but it works for me. But it's hard to do it with two people, especially when one of them is not technically adept. Does that sound too terrible? I don't want to sound bad, but
no,
everybody's got different skills, right? So
right, and your creativity is beautiful and it's amazing. And we can't all walk through the celluloid portal like Roger Rabbit.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wish it was more Cool World, but that's okay. We'll take Roger Rabbit as well.
Yeah, Cool World.
You're familiar with Cool World at all?
Oh yeah, that was a great one for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, so have you found that doing this frees you up to do things as a character that you may not be able to do as a real person?
As a whole, yes, because in a way, I mean, once you kind of bridge the gap between your private space and public space, you kind of become a character anyway. I mean, in a lot of regards, because I always say that, when I'm doing things like this, it's a heightened version of myself. So I really am a character. And then whenever I retreat back to my private world, I'm a much more subdued person. I always joke with folks who ask me, I'm like, if you met me on the street after talking to me in this environment, you would be like, that's not the same person. So, I would say, to answer your question, yes, but it was a little bit longer.
All right. All right. Okay, we're done.
Well, no, one of the
that's all right.
One of the interesting things that is said by Bob the fireman in his alter ego as a actor is that we're all characters. God, what's his name?
Who's Bob the
Drew
fireman?
Carey.
Oh,
right.
Drew Carey said that?
No, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey.
Oh, he was you mean Fire Marshal Bill?
Fire Marshal Bill. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Jim says that he inhabits himself. Even Jim Carrey is a character. Mm-hmm. And then there's this aspect of the ego, kind of, we create these personas, and that our truer selves are not separate or isolated at all. So in a sense, you've just taken that to a new level.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some people might call it coding. If you're in certain situations, you code to the situation. So like if you happen to be at a barbecue and everybody's talking about cars or something, then you just give your car knowledge, even though maybe you don't even give a crap about cars, or in you guys is, mopeds, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so, but then for this, you're doing it, a little more for entertainment. So you kind of pull out the entertainment aspects of your personality and put them out, put them forward.
Yeah.
So maybe, it'll be a little fun.
So I'm inhabiting the pod host version of Mark.
There you go.
Right.
The pod guy.
Yeah. And thank God it's not like Dr. Pimple Popper.
Oh my God! Do you watch those things? I cannot stomach watching that show.
No, I don't. I don't watch that.
There is a show about pimple popping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did not need to know that.
The weird thing is, if it's my own, I'm perfectly comfortable. When it gets to be other people's and it gets to be like monstrous, I'm not comfortable with that at all.
That's
anything
like
over 2 ounces and I'm out.
you weigh your expulsion of pimples, or?
Oh, that's gross. Come on, guys. Let's change the subject. How about saliva?
Do you save it for the year and like, this is my yearly output for sebum or whatever?
Are you guys comfortable swapping saliva?
With
my
whom?
girlfriend, not with him, not with an animated cat.
Got a hairball.
Brilliant. All right, so have you found limitations in being an animated character? Are there times where you feel like it's stifling?
Well, I can't move my arms very easily because I can if I would memorize the keyboard shortcuts, but I haven't yet. And then I also try to focus on what I'm talking about so I don't push buttons accidentally and mess everything up. So that's one of them. And the fact that I can move side to side, but front and back is a little bit, it doesn't work too well in a two-dimensional world here. So,
yeah, that's a lot of vector calcs to go front.
Yeah,
back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a trophy.
I can move over here. I can move over here. I can raise my eyebrows. Hey.
All right, so you have to animate your eyebrows?
I can. Yeah. Actually, see.
Right. Okay.
But it's actually looking at my face and mimicking my facial moves. The only thing is I can't wink or anything. It just blinks. It doesn't wink. So.
All right. So staticradio.com is your site.
Yeah.
And do you guys have a mission statement or some sort of cornerstone to
a mission statement? No mission statement. Basically, we just come, we try to, have something funny to say each time we do a show, if possible. And if we can't make it funny, we make it weird or strange. And that's kind of the whole bit. I say at this point now, it's a 24-year conversation with a friend of mine. And each week we record a show and tell each other something that's happened. Typically, most all stories are first person, so it happened to either one of us. Every once in a while, stuff is tangential, but not very often. So, all these kind of weird things happen as you go through life, and it's just kind of an amalgam of all those things. And obviously, we try to pick the funny ones. Sometimes they're sad, to be honest with you, but it's funny after the fact. So.
Well, yeah, that's the human condition right there, right?
Right.
A lot of comedies based on pain or
yeah, there's been a lot of pain sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Was
yeah.
it painful? And, did you go through a painful physical process becoming 2D? I mean, how do you make your organs function?
This has been really easy, actually, once I got it all figured out, but it's not been too bad. I mean, like I said, the two-dimensional aspect's the hardest part.
And do you change colors ever? Do you wake up some days and want to be purple?
Mm-mm. I don't know why this blue got picked, but it did. And I don't know. I kind of dig it. It's kind of a weird
Tiffany blue, man. It's very on brand.
It looks, Tiffany. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. But yeah,
you're a Tiffany brand.
Blue.
That's, you're.
Yeah. I should get a collar with the logo or something on it.
Well, and for those of you that are listening only, you should really go over to our YouTube and like and subscribe because you're missing out on this episode for sure.
Yeah.
You're missing the blue cat.
The blue cat.
Blue cat with the green striped shirt. I think I have shirts like this for real at home here. So
do you find that there's competitive nature with other animated cats like Felix or Garfield?
Not so much, I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, those guys are obviously very popular. It would be lovely to be somewhat popular, I suppose, but I hadn't really compared myself to those yet. But their shtick is a little bit different. Mine's mostly a verbal kind of shtick as opposed to physical. So, I mean, maybe if I got into the physical part of it, maybe it would be a little more. Thinking about it a little bit more, but I would say if I had to be compared, I would probably compare myself to Tom from Tom and Jerry.
Okay. So how long Static been on the air? How long is Static?
We'll be 24 years. We're finishing. We'll be in 24 years right now. So 25 in January.
So was it radio prior to that?
Yeah. So the whole thing started. Miles and I. We're in college radio together, And so we did college radio for several years in college, oddly enough. And we kind of had a thing that we did that's very similar to what it is now. After college got over with, I'm like, hey, we want to keep doing this. So we came up with this back in 1998 and put it online, and really in earnest in January 99 did a weekly show, and we've pretty much been doing it ever since.
Was
That's
it
so
an actual
cool.
podcast format in 99?
There was no podcasting. This was all pre-podcasting. That's essentially why it was originally called Static Internet Radio, and because that's what everybody were calling whatever you were doing at that time. And then so we were doing it for about 5 years, and then podcasting got coined, and then essentially it was a podcast because that's what everybody was calling everything at that point. And we've been through, all the ups and downs of podcasting. This is the probably I would say the third resurgence. I don't know what you want to call it, but of podcasting. So the first one was in 2004, and then around 2011. And then now it's stronger than ever. 2004 and 2011, it was just a bunch of nerds doing podcasting. And then now all the cool kids have come on, and like you guys are doing it and other people are doing it. So it certainly is. People understand what the word means now. It's not just, everybody before, like, are you talking about an iPod? No. It's what you listen to on your iPod.
In the early days in 99, it was like you had to format it for Winamp, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, so that was the thing. There wasn't even MP3 at that point. The reason that we were able to do it was because I had access to something called Real Audio. And I had a Real Audio server access that I had. And so we did everything in Real Audio for the first year or so. And then MP3 came along, and we transitioned to doing MP3s, and then podcasting came into existence based off of that, and so forth. But you could listen to it on Winamp, or you could just basically download a file and listen to it. There wasn't really streaming. I mean, we could stream with Real Audio, but people really didn't do that back then. So
not until the Tommy Lee tape came out.
Then that was kind of a big
that was a big moment
point in history, right?
A big moment in the evolution of internet video.
The funny thing is, they always say, if you want to see where media is going, look to the porn industry.
Yeah, that's real. Definitely drove the internet media thing. So when Napster came out, did you jump onto that when that first hit?
Well, actually, part of the reason the show is the way it is because of Napster. So Napster was happening at the time we started doing this. We were going to just repeat our college show, which means we were going to play music, and then in between, songs, we would chit and chat and what have you. But because of Napster, we never did play the music because we didn't want to get, hit with any, because they were like suing everybody's grandma back then.
Yeah.
$100,000 in infraction. And so we just dropped all the music and stuck with the bits.
You missed out on an opportunity to meet Lars Ulrich in court.
Yeah, in court, right. I'm glad I missed that one. I don't really want to go in court with those guys.
Yeah.
So
I got some cash.
Have you and your partner created a viable business with Static Radio? Do you have a revenue?
No, I would say no. Not because of the fact that you can't. I think more along the lines of the fact that we're both incredibly lazy, and so it's everything that we have to just keep doing it every week, let alone trying to get advertisers and stuff. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. I mean, you could, and I've been, deciding if I want to join the Spotify, ranks or Bean Sprout or whatever the other ones are. But whenever we started, there wasn't anything like that. You basically had to go get your own advertisers. For a short time, we were on a thing called Mevio.com. I don't know if you remember that. That was Adam Curry's podcasting company.
Okay.
And so we had our show on there for a while. And so with that, there was a little bit of money, but, Curry kept most of it. He wasn't like handing out a lot of money at that time. But then that all ended. I think it got bought out by somebody, and they just kind of, changed directions. And so we weren't part of that anymore. But I think that the possibility is certainly there for folks. But, I don't think I would want to make it my day job right out of the gate. So, keep that in mind.
Yeah, you'd have to live off cat food.
Right, yeah. I'm already eating cheap, but it's more expensive than you think.
Yeah. So what are you
I
up
can
to?
eat for about 50 cents a dinner.
What are you up to in terms of life beyond static radio?
So I don't we rarely talk about our work. It's always revolves around our personal stuff, which both of them are kind of interesting for both of us, but we rarely ever talk about it. I basically have a government job, which is fantastic. And I suggest anybody who can get one, go out and apply. So, but it doesn't, it's not very entertaining for the most part. It's probably more filled with frustration. Than anything.
Well, yeah, those are the problems that our people have to solve and not necessarily want to solve, right? I mean,
yeah. So, but I don't really, if I talk about work, it's usually via some other thing. So I have to travel quite a bit. There are times I have to travel. This last few years I haven't because of COVID, but in the past I've traveled, and so I have a lot of travel stories and weird stuff that happens. Like I just had to travel recently, and a lady just came into my room. It was locked. The door was shut. Thankfully I was just answering emails, and the next thing I know, my door flings open, and there's this little tiny woman standing there.
And was she a cleaning person or?
She didn't ever. I said hello, and she just looked shocked, and like we just stared at each other for probably about 15 seconds, and then she shut the door and left. I don't know who she was.
She was a leprechaun.
She didn't have a uniform on. I don't know. It was weird. Yeah. It was a weird experience.
That is weird.
So, I had that happen to me in a hotel in Milan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't in Milan, but
yeah. I was up late because I'd left.
Oh, they opened it at night. Oh my.
Right. Hotels are open at night. It's true.
No. I mean, in your room. I mean, late at night in your room. Goodness.
It was more like a knock on the door at 1 a.m, Milan time. And I opened the door, and there was this statuesque, stunning woman dressed in the most sexy clothes you could imagine for an Italian woman at 1 a.m. in Milan. And she said, Mr. So-and-so. And I said, no. And she said, is this room blah, blah, blah? And I said, actually, no.
You said the wrong thing, apparently.
And I was like, if only I'd said yes.
Yeah. That's what I was just thinking.
I was married. So I said no for very specific reasons.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't regret it. I still have my honor and integrity but oh my God, when you think about
how did she get in the door? Did she have a key?
She knocked. I knocked.
Oh, she knocked and you answered. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I guess I missed that part.
That's the kind of government job I had. No, I'm just kidding. Most people don't bother. We say this to firemen and we say this to people who are in the armed services, but you know what? Thank you for your service, Bob.
Oh, I'm not in the
I know
army or anything. I'm just doing paper pusher.
You're doing public service. You're helping us all. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're helping us all, navigate life through the U.S.
Oh well, hey, there you go. So, I need to put that on my desk. Don't bother me. I'm helping people navigate life.
Can you tell us what branch of the government you work for?
He can, but he'd have to kill us.
No, it's the state government, so it's not federal. So,
Oh, okay. So you work for what state?
in Missouri
All right.
or Missouri, depending on where you're from.
So what are your responsibilities?
Oh, I don't want to go into that. That'll hone in a little too close, potentially.
He signed an NDA. Plus, it's probably not as entertaining as the whole blue cat thing. But,
No, it's not. It's very boring stuff.
When you're not doing talk radio and you're not working, do you play sports? Do you play music? Do you like? I know you did some movies and you sort of skipped over.
Yeah. So no, yeah. So I try. This is kind of my creative outlet because in my work, it's not super creative. You're really hemmed in by a lot of rules and regulations and so forth, and so you can't do too much that anyone would consider creative. I guess maybe picking the blue color is about as creative as you can get with that. But no, so the weird thing is Miles and I both went to film school together. And so we have made a couple of, things over time. I've done my own, he's done his own, and we've done stuff together, just short things and so forth over the years. And we have an idea and then we'll, move it forward and so forth, depending on how, like I said, we're really lazy. So it kind of depends on whatever else is going on. And so those are the creative things I do most of the time is stuff like that. We've made a spoofy, one of those ghost shows. I like to think of it as the anti-ghost show. We have a thing called Tri-State Ghost Patrol that we did. Eventually we'll do another one. But basically the premise of it was we found a restaurant between the two of us because we live a few hours apart. We randomly picked a restaurant, met there, and then assumed it was haunted and did a whole little shticky kind of thing with meters and talking to ghosts and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really silly. It's a short thing, but it was fun to do. And I thought we would probably do more, but we haven't got another edition of that yet. But we both have experience have a degree actually for filmmaking, and so we do stuff like that. We both had kids, and so there's probably more things about my kids that I made than anything else, which aren't publicly available. But I would make little short movies with my children. When they were kids, and then this, static radio is a hobby as well, and doing all kinds of stuff with that. So everything kind of spins off of that. We do, like we did the animated thing. We've done, we rarely ever record together, which I think is funny. I don't know how far apart you guys are as far as distance, but it seems like every time we come together, we never do static radio stuff. We always do something else. So it just happens that way. It's kind of weird now that I think about it. You think we would record something, but we never do.
Well, that's one of the beauties of our current technological landscape.
Yeah.
What movies are you into? Like, have you taken your family to see Barbie yet?
I haven't gone to see Barbie. Actually, the weird thing is COVID is kind of, I used to be a very big go to the movies person, and my children hate me because I remember seeing all these movies. So, I mean, you name any movie over the last, 30 years, like, oh yeah, I remember going to see that. I went to this theater and I went, with your mom, or I went with a friend of mine or whatever. But since COVID, I haven't been really that much. I don't think I've been at all. And so, plus the fact that we got this huge television at home really, makes a difference. If you can sit in front of a huge TV, you don't need all the screen and everything. But I pretty much like, I'd say the funny thing is Miles and I are very different in taste. And so I kind of I'd be more Oppenheimer than Barbie, even though I will watch Barbie whenever I get around to it. But probably more an Oppenheimer kind of guy at the current time. I like action, comedy, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. Mostly dramas, I'll watch them, but I don't gravitate towards that because I always like to look at these things as escapist entertainment, and so if it's not going to take me out of something, then I'm not quite as interested.
If you could watch right now, you could pick between Indiana Jones 5 and Oppenheimer. Which one would you watch?
Oh, that's a good question. Just depends how we phrase this. So based on reviews, Oppenheimer.
Okay, so
based on
you got your channel changer right in front, and you've got pick either one. You're going with Oppenheimer.
I would go with Oppenheimer based currently on that. My heart, though, I'd go with Indiana Jones because I was young, and I can tell you, I went to the Avon Theater in Decatur, Illinois, and saw Indiana Jones in 1982, and it was a fantastic movie that was, the crazy thing, last time Miles visited my house, we watched Indiana Jones, the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I love to say Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, which does not have anything to do with the real title when it came out. It was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark, folks.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
So they're changing history. That's a Lucas thing.
Well, I've heard that. Anyway, that gets into a whole different realm. So,
what were you going to say?
There's people who believe our timeline is shifting all the time. So.
Is this like a Mandela effect?
Right, exactly. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
So, you were drawn to the paranormal, even to make fun of it. There was some element.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love it. I think those things are great fun.
So what do you think of this Mandela effect?
I think, the weird thing is there's something to it because there's so many examples. Some of the examples aren't as good as others. The one that always gets me thinking is Berenstain Bears because I remember it vividly as a child, and it wasn't spelt the same way as they'd say now.
Yeah,
Berenstain Bears, and that was. And then I also thought Mandela died a long time ago, and then he was alive, so that was another weird one because it brings around the whole idea of the name. But some of them they're a little loose. Unfortunately, once something like that kind of breaks into culture, everybody wants to tack something onto it, and then it gets a little bit ragged. But there's something to it. I actually have a fellow podcaster, if you will, an early podcaster. I've known him since 2000, when there was before the podcasting term. Frank Nora thinks he lost a year. He was going through a year and it changed and his timeline changed and so forth. He talks about it. You can listen to it. His show is The Overnightscape, but he's an interesting fella. And I think it was 2009. He said something happened and it felt like it felt like he redid it. He did it twice.
Like his memory of 2009 did not coincide with history's 2009.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, his show, he talks about it quite extensively a couple times. And it's like, it's like he felt weird. And next thing you know, he's thinking back and he's like, this isn't the same year that I remember. And it was all the things had changed for him. So it's kind of interesting. He's not he's an interesting person and, not prone to, just making things up out of whole cloth like that. It's, especially just that one thing. It doesn't make any sense to do that. I mean, if that were the case, he'd make all kinds of stuff up. But I think there is something to it. What it is, I don't know. I don't really have much of a theory for it other than maybe we are switching through time. I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't noticed anything in my life that I feel like has changed drastically, unless I talk to my mother, which, she'll say I had an idyllic childhood and all the things that I talk about didn't happen. So,
well, the Berenstain Bears one for me is where I go, okay, there's something to this.
Yeah, I don't know why that one specifically. stands out because I can vividly remember the books.
Right.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't, hit right.
And why would they change the title spelling? Why would that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But as we go forward, like the Indiana Jones example, now all these kids, so, you get kids who got Disney Plus and they're watching Disney Plus, and it's like, it's Star Wars A New Hope. Again, it wasn't. It was just called Star Wars. I remember going to see it like probably 5 times during that time period at the Rogers Theater. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that one to me isn't as Candlestein as because when the series started, when chapters 1, 2, and 3 came out, then it made sense to sort of change the title to reflect the series from beginning to end.
Sure. I think the only weird issue is just that, people who come into it later, they just refer to it that way. And
right.
And so it's just a little bit like, well, yeah, but it wasn't quite, that. So, yeah.
So, have you personally had an experience with the paranormal where you experienced something that couldn't be explained with physical science?
I have. I'll give you the quick version of it. So in 2020, this isn't the paranormal part, my house burnt down because of an electrical fire. Wow. And we had to live in a rental house for a year. And within like the first, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days of being at the rental house, we basically had nothing in the house. We literally arrived at the rental with nothing. And Amazon dropped off beds and mattresses, and I put them all together and everything. And so that within the first few nights, I wake up in the middle of the night and I see this big shadow of a person. It seemed to me when I woke up that they were in the window, and I thought it was somebody outside the window. And we had moved in, we're displaced, and we moved into this neighborhood. It was really a single family homes. It just happens to have a few rental houses in it. So we had this kind of, it was a very nice neighbor, but he was just kind of creepy to me. And I thought, in my head, oh, this creepy neighbor is looking in our window while we're sleeping. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I get up, and then later the next day, my son, who was with us, said this shadow came into his room and tried to grab his leg. And he described it to me, and it was the same night that I had seen this thing. He and I saw a shadow person.
Wow.
In the house. Now, the weird thing is this house was built in the 90s. It's not an old house. It's your run-of-the-mill, cul-de-sac neighborhood kind of house. But the other thing that happened, so he and I were the only ones that ever saw it. And then he saw it again walking through the kitchen one night because he was a teenager and was staying up all night playing Xbox and whatnot.
Right.
And I never did see it again, but he did, and he told me about it. Now, at the time, I did not acknowledge to him that I saw this thing by the window because we had to live there for a year. We're already homeless, and so I got to be, the responsible father. And I go, well, I don't know, bud. I don't think, maybe you were just dreaming or you're sleeping. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, we saw this thing.
It tried to grab your leg.
Tried to grab your leg. Holy moly, I got to keep track of this. So I told my wife the same thing, and then just to keep everybody, because we're already discombobulated, right? So,
and isn't this amidst like COVID lockdown 2020?
Before, so this would have been just before we went into lockdown. So it was late 2019, early 2020. So, so then the weird thing was ended up getting a dog because we had animals and they all died. I don't want to get sad about all this, but they all died in the fire.
Way to
And- way to bring it down, cat boy. So we ended up getting a dog, and then we had this big. Oh, the basement wasn't finished. It was just this big open basement. The dog would not go in the corner of this basement.
Wow.
Even though he would run around and play down there, we'd throw the ball down there because, it was kind of like, it was fun because it would bounce all over the place. There's nothing down there.
Right.
And, but he wouldn't go in this one corner. And then everybody heard noises in the basement. There's nothing in the basement. Literally, it's totally empty. Noises in the basement the whole time we were living there. But then he and I never did see he saw the shadow a couple more times, but then it settled down after that. But the weird thing is, and I haven't talked to these people, but the year before we lived there, the people lived there a year. They left the year after we lived there. They sold the house, and the people lived there for a year and left.
Wow.
So over the course of 3 years, it was a purchased home after we left. We went out and the owners decided just to get rid of it. And it was weird. It was a weird experience. And but it was, I don't know what to think of it, but it was, at the time, I didn't think what I was seeing, I thought it was the creepy neighbor, but it probably wasn't. It didn't make a lot of sense. Because it wasn't like there was a big light outside to put a shadow on the window. And then with my son's experience combined, it's like, oh, hey, we had some kind of weird happenstance.
Are you aware of any proximity to an indigenous culture? Like, are you near
right. Poltergeist scenario?
Mm-mm. No, it was built in a cornfield. So, I mean, as close to any indigenous tribe that walked across to get water somewhere, maybe that's about it.
Got it.
Yeah. It was just farmland that got turned into housing, which you see in a lot of, suburban sprawl. Right. But a newer house. And so, it was weird.
Speaking of other paranormal things, do you have kind of a spiritual practice in your family? Do you guys have a religion that you follow?
Not really. I mean, I grew up very religious, I suppose. Not very religious, but somewhat religious. As religious as the next guy, But my wife, not so much. And so we, when the kids would do stuff in conjunction with the church and so forth when they were smaller, but then as they got older, we didn't have much to do with it. So,
how do you relate to that now? Like, do you have a vision of heaven?
It's a good question. I don't know. I always feel, and I've kind of witnessed as my relatives have got older, people seem to get closer to God the closer they get to death. And so I'm wondering if that's going to happen to me as well. But I don't know. I would say, I would hope that there is something. And just like everybody else, I'll probably hedge my bets a little closer to the time. But right now,
so the main framework, as you imagine it, would be the Christian framework then.
Oh, as far as what it'll look like or what have you?
Yeah, well,
I suppose I think it's popular culture, framework where you're going to go and I'll be able to chat with Einstein and, I'll be able to talk about, his equations.
Oh, you think Einstein has a lot of time for Bob when you get there?
Well, you have all the time in the world, right? So I'm sure that he would. Everybody, Warhol said everybody's going to get their 15 minutes of fame, right? Well, in heaven, you'll get your 15 minutes with everybody famous.
Maybe. We've already introduced that time isn't linear, potentially.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that concept. Time is, that gets back to the paranormal a little bit. And I have this theory that when people say they see ghosts and everything, I don't know about the shadow people, that could be part of this, but when everybody see ghosts, it's not that they're seeing ghosts, it's they're actually seeing back in time or forward in time. And because it's I don't know if you guys use Photoshop at all or anything like that. So There's layers in Photoshop, right? So
Right.
time is like layers, and we're just moving through. We're moving on this layer, right? But all the other layers are still there, and I think it's thinner in some places than others. And so every once in a while, you get a glimpse of what was or what is to be potentially.
Well, that brings up the whole concept too of like the other side of physical life, death, and how a lot of beliefs believe that curtain that separates the two gets thin, like the end of October, the fall.
Right.
Well-known time where people believe that's a thin curtain. So when this shadow came, what time of the season was it?
This would have been, I guess it would have been like in June, maybe. It was 2019. I'm trying to remember. A very traumatic time, so don't you know? But but yeah, I think it was somewhere around June. Oh, I can tell you, it was in June, but I can't remember what day in June.
Did it frighten your son, the experience?
Oh, yes. Very frightened. Very
Okay.
frightened.
All right.
And he was a teenager, so he wasn't like a little kid. So it wasn't like he was horrified, but he certainly was like, what the hell is going on? And it was uncomfortable. And so that's why I was like, I can't say, hey, I saw the same thing. Isn't that wild? And then it would be like, I had to kind of downplay it quite a bit. I have, since we moved, I have told him, and he was a little bit mad at me. But I'm like, literally, I don't know if you guys have ever been through, something like that, but you're trying to hold together everything that you have any, modicum of control over, because you're thrust into a world of insurance companies and things like that. And it's not the most, comfortable for most people. You have people that are telling you they want to help you, but in reality, they want to help you to the point where they don't lose any money. And you're basically got nothing, and you need that money, and they're trying not to give you that money. So it's a whole thing.
Is there anything you personally lost in the fire that is still a painful loss in your life?
Oh, well, it's superficial but painful. The wild thing is that I would say, much like most, and I don't want to generalize necessarily, but much like most people, you have things that you like, right? Your things.
Right.
And going through the experience, I don't care about things anymore, because literally everything was gone. Right. So the thing itself is immaterial at that point. Thankfully, I mean, other than our pets, everybody was fine. But it was very traumatic in the fact that you put value into all these things and then they're gone. I mean, literally, we happened to, a little bit into it here, we went out to dinner. We came home for dinner. The house was burning down.
Wow.
So within the course of about 45 minutes, we went from everybody's happy and now we're going to go get something to eat. And when we come home, I had to say, hey, that's my house on fire. Can you let me get up there? Because all the emergency services people were here. So, but to answer your question, it would be, I had Star Wars trading cards. So I grew up, I wouldn't say we were terribly wealthy at all. We were probably lower middle class. And I didn't have a lot of stuff. I had a lot of hand-me-downs and so forth. And so some of the things that were only mine and only mine, were these trading cards, and those were lost. And I bring it up on the show with Miles, and every time I say, well, when the fire, and then he gets, oh my gosh, the fire, got to hear about this again. But that's probably one of the things that I lost, that I was like, I had these since I was a kid, and at the time when I got them, that was very special, because it was something I really liked. It was something that wasn't passed through my cousins or my brother, and it was just mine. And so I kept them all this time. up until that point. So yeah.
What would you say the effects of Yoda's tutelage of Luke in Empire Strikes Back affected your personal development?
Well, I mean, it's reflected today in the cat, because I would do, if I could, I'd do a puppet, but this is easier for me to do, oddly enough, than a puppet. If I had to do a puppet, I probably would pass out with my arm above my head for the length of time we've been talking. But I think Yoda was great, and I totally bought into it at the time. You know, he was a real character, and it was fun, and he was funny. You know, it really was. I thought it was the greatest thing ever in the prequels. Whenever he's jumping around fighting, I think a lot of people thought that was a little overkill, but I thought, you know, hey, good for Yoda. He can, you know, this is back when he was doing stuff. And then he got older, and, you know, and then he's stuck on Dagobah hiding out so he doesn't get killed.
But when you saw Empire Strikes Back and the philosophy of the Force and Yoda was exemplified a little bit more, how did that impact your set of values?
Oh boy, these are tough questions, Mark. That's a good question. I don't know that I was. I've always been, you know, kind of a good kid, a fairly generous person. I'm a cheapskate, so Yoda didn't help me with that. But I'm always generous with my time, if not with my money. And then, but I think it was interesting because it was certainly a good thing for your self-image, to believe in yourself, to know that you can do things, that you can accomplish things that you wouldn't think that you could. And it's all very positive messages. And I think I took that to heart as a kid, so that way it's not, you know, things didn't hold me back so much going forward, because whenever I wanted to do something, I've never had an extreme self-doubt. I don't know if I can attribute it totally to Yoda, but there's certainly elements there in the movie that point to that. You know, that, and, you know, and even if your father's a terrible person, you can still forgive him.
Yeah, so the arc of the whole story really landed with you. That whole thing that George intended with the redemption of Darth Vader at the end.
Yeah, although I did freak out whenever he was in the cave, and then the head, you know, and it chops off the head, and then poof, there goes the mask.
And it was
that
Luke.
Was some heavy stuff for a little kid.
Yeah.
What about Luke leaving his training? And you know, there's Yoda saying,
well, he felt like he had to. His friends were his. That was more important. And sometimes that happens. You can't. One of the things that my children probably hate me, because I have all these little like sayings that I kind of force fed them over time, and I'm like, you know, stick to the plan till you can't. And stuff like that. And so that's what Luke did. He stuck to the plan until he couldn't. He said, I can't stick to the plan anymore. And I think that was, you know, where he thought he needed to go, and he did. And that's what happened. But I don't fault him for doing that. I think that's what he felt that he had to do. I know, you know, people would say, oh, you got to keep doing it. Well, you got to stick to it until you can't.
So the fire's obviously a drastic change to plan. Have you had a recent instance where you made a personal change because you couldn't stick to the plan?
Well, as I've gotten older, I have to eat better. So I stuck to my plan of eating terribly for most of my life. And then recently I'm like, I can't do this anymore because I'm not doing it. I can't do it anymore. My body's telling me that this is not going to work anymore. And so, yeah, I've done that. I think it's not something that many people would notice per se. I mean, I didn't turn vegan or anything, but I certainly took stock in what I was doing and made a change, even though I never would have figured I would have had you asked me even 3 years ago.
How old are your children right now?
My kids, 21 and 24.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have intimate relationship with them in the sense like it's consistent, or are you finding they're now off living their life and it's sort of touch and go?
Well, I want them to live their life, but we keep in constant touch. So my daughter lives in California. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. Her mom and I, and her brother. So we're far apart, but we still keep in good contact. And I would hope, I mean, you'd have to ask them that question about closeness, but I think we've been pretty close, but I'm not, I'm not an overbearing person. I want them to do what they want and live their lives and so forth and follow their dreams. And so they're doing that. My daughter is much more independent than my son. He's still in school. And she's often on her adventure. So we're there to help out. And if she wants advice, I'll certainly give it. I mean, other than my, one-liners, which I always throw out all the time,
like stick to the plan until
you can't, and don't force it. Is another one, put things back in the same place. That way you'll be able to find them. I mean, I hate all of them. Have
you a new passion that's arisen in your life as your children have moved on into their own?
I don't know. Probably not yet. I think as soon as my son gets, going on whatever career he chooses, or whatever he wants to do, it doesn't have to be a career, but whenever he is done with school and moving on to other things, and I'm thinking about stuff. I'm making plans for stuff, but I haven't jumped in or anything. So, we lost somebody.
We lost Mark. Yeah. Is there?
He got bored. He's like, I'm tired of listening to this crap.
Well, he was saying that he was having internet connection issues earlier, so perhaps they finally caught up. But are you able to share some of the seeds of thoughts you have, or would you rather just keep them private for right now?
Oh, for what I'm going to do, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't mind. Yeah. So I would love to do more. So I'm doing this a little bit because so the funny thing is, basically I've been doing static radio since before my daughter was born. And it kind of was my, creative outlet for a lot of years because, well, I don't know. Do you have kids yourself? Or
I have 3. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they take up a lot of time, right? So,
great.
I mean,
yeah.
So this all was happening, usually late in the evening, while everybody else is, you get everybody taken care of when they're young, and then you may have an hour or so in the evening or longer if you want to stay up and not get any sleep. And so that's all taking place during that time. And then as they've gotten older, a little more freedom for, mom and dad and so forth. And, but I'm still kind of concentrating on making sure, I always say I'm trying to get them through to a point, right? So for my kids, some people would say, you're going to get them to 18 and that's it. For me, I want to get them through at least their first, bachelor's degree. And that's my goal. And so I focus on that. And it's not that I'm pushing them or anything, but I want to be there if they need anything. So I want to make sure that I'm not so booked up that if something comes up that I'm not available to help out. Right. So whatever that is, I mean, it could be as simple as just, driving them somewhere or making sure they get somewhere or what have you. And so I'm still in that mode for another year or so. And then after that, then I'll be even more freed up. But I like to do more, film projects and do little videos and whatnot. This, the stuff I'm doing, like this interview and stuff, wouldn't have happened, 6 years ago or something, because I just would not have had I would not have wanted to book all the time or even take the time, because I was very much, when I was a kid growing up, we didn't get to do a lot of things because there just wasn't a lot of money and so forth. And so I want to make sure that if we can do it, we do it, so make myself available, make resources available. If the kids want to do something, we would always go do it as best we could. It's not like Paris Hilton or something where they're going to jet off to Europe. But if they wanted to go bowling or something, we'd go bowling, just to give you a average Joe example, or go to the movies or do something like that. So I didn't want anything to be in the way.
Well, earlier you said with the federal job, you highly recommend people go out and get a government job, not a federal job, a government job. So was the stability very important to you in having a family?
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. So growing up, my father was a good provider, but he was a private sector person, and he got laid off because that would be like in the 60s and 70s when in the 70s when I was younger. He got laid. I remember him being home for a year because the economy was so bad in the late 70s and early 80s, right? And that kind of gets ingrained in you, especially when you're that, about 10 years old or whatever. And you're like, I don't want that to happen to me. Right. And so, everybody made it and everything was fine. And nobody was, without, clothes or shoes or something. But, but it certainly does put you, even though you don't think it impacts you at the time, and maybe you don't feel it as an impact, but it impacts you over time, because then you're like, what can I do to not have to be in that situation? And that was why I said that, and why I've kind of had the path that I've had. I could have, actually a lot of friends of mine and stuff went out to California after school, and but I'm like, that's very iffy, right? So right. I had an opportunity and I took it, and it's worked out pretty well. So it's not, it's not that I don't want to take risks. It's just at that point, I was like, I think I'll do this,
Right. And no regrets.
No, not at all. It's been awesome. It's been good. I joke from time to time, to say Jack Black has my career, but probably not. Let's be honest. But I always thought I could, be an auteur kind of thing where I would act and produce and direct and all that good kind of stuff. And I still get to do that in some ways. But not in a, on the higher levels, although they're all on strike now. So who cares?
Well, and you're not dead. So there's always potential,
That's right. I could have gone down that path of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but I chose government work. That could be on their poster, two paths. It'd be like the game of life or whatever. So go down sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right. You know what? I haven't seen that version of the board game yet. That might be coming.
It's a new one.
Yeah, that might be coming. There'll be 3 paths: the college, the working, and then the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You just end up dead on that hotel in Hollywood.
That's right. 27 in the Legend.
Right.
Yeah. 27 dead in the Legend.
So we're coming towards the end here, and I'm wondering, is there anything that you'd like to mention that hasn't been touched upon?
In what regard? Can you give me anything? I was going to ask you guys where you guys are at. It looks like it's a nice day behind you. I don't know if that's really your space or not. I'm guessing it is.
We're in Northern California, and who knows where Mark is? He's fallen off, but yeah, we're both in Northern.
You're both in Northern California?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me? You don't have to tell me exactly where, but give me a.
We're in Marin County, which is just.
Hey, you're by Lucasfilm and everything. Get out of town.
Yeah, exactly.
Skywalker Ranch.
Mark is an official Jedi. He was in, I forget
Cool.
movie. But he is on the Jedi database. You can look him up. I forget his Jedi name. And also for, gosh, was it 6 years? He was the official archivist for Lucasfilm and Industrial Lights and Magic. So
Really?
anything that was licensed, part of the licensing agreement was that hard, a real element of it. So for instance, Legos, the Death Star Legos, he would have 2 of those in stock at least, and he was in charge of archiving. So at any time, someone could say, "Hey, where's the?" and he would look it up. So those Star Wars cards that you lost in the fire, he had copies of those all archived. And
he had the Courage of Luke Skywalker sticker. I think that's one of the things that I lost.
Anything, yeah. In fact, when my son, one of his birthdays surprises is Mark invited him, and I got to accompany him, and we got a tour of the Lucas Ranch and the archives. And my son was gifted a few items from the archive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
It was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm trying to think. I haven't been to Marin County, have I? I've been up in Northern California, but I don't know that I've been there.
Well, what part of California is your daughter in?
Los Angeles.
Is she going for a entertainment career?
No, but her boyfriend actually works in the industry, and so that's why they're over there. So,
okay.
But he's young. They're both young, so it's tough going, especially right now. So,
well, yeah, aren't we all young? It's tough going. We're young. All right, so here's our final question.
Sure.
This is a very important question, Bob, and so, Foo Fighters or Eminem?
Oh boy, my gut instinct is to say Foo Fighters. Is that bad or is that good?
There's no wrong answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I like them both, but I'll say overall, I could probably name more Foo Fighters songs.
So you're more.
Why. Plus, I like the whole UFO angle on it.
The whole what?
UFO angle. Foo Fighters is a UFO, right? World War II, they called them Foo Fighters instead of UFOs.
Oh, is that where they got the name?
Yeah, Foo Fighter, yeah.
Ah.
You didn't know that? So the pilots in World War II, if they'd see like, a lot of times they would see like balls of light outside the plane and during combat that weren't like shells. They would follow the plane. They called them Foo Fighters. I got a Foo Fighter on my, 6 o'clock or whatever.
All right.
And that's where the name, I'm assuming that's where the name comes from. You have to ask, Dave Grohl.
Dave, sure. Right. Well, next time I cross paths with him,
when you're hanging out.
Yeah,
because you took the sex, drugs, and rock and roll path, you'll, you're bound to run into him.
Right, yeah. Well, Bob, I really thank you for your time, for your imagery, and wish you all the best.
Yeah, you guys too, and tell Mark hey. And I didn't ask what you did, Greg, but maybe you do something as incredibly impressive as Mark did. I don't know. I
don't have anything as impressive of that.
Oh, okay.
How can you top Jedi Knight? Come on.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say, but I don't want to put, I didn't want to make you feel bad or anything. No. You can say I was Yoda's hairdresser. I don't know. That would be a good one.
I was a Darth, isn't Darth the beginning of some shadow Jedi? Like Darth Maul?
Well, Darth Vader and Darth Maul, Darth Sidious. Yeah, all the Darths.
Right. So I was Darth Greg.
Fantastic. Darth Greg.
Yep. The insidious Darth Greg. All right, sir. Well, all the best to you and your family, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Recording stopped.